This lesson for the Cornet Project class, I'd like to make a presentation about the difference between pre-tribulation rapture and pre-apocalypse, meaning prior to the entirety of the apocalypse that John wrote. We call it the book of Revelation. We looked at Irenaeus, and he was in the first 2 centuries early, and he was there dealing with martyrdom. Lyon, France, Christians were slaughtered in the arena, and his work to sort what Bible text should be considered inspired, if we will, and talking about the process of canonizing. In his work, he was laboring to sort out from among Gnostic text, and he was known for contending against Gnosticism. But he was sorting out what was it that these people were dying for, and what was it that was causing them to be killed and slaughtered. And that was why today we might not, like where I am, there's no persecution. There might be, I guess someone could unfriend me, whatever that is. But that was a very difficult time, and he has much to say in his book or his writings against heresies. And we learned that he had believed and taught that the entire apocalypse, that God, the church, as he says, a large category. I'll have to go back and look at what word that was. I know in English we could lose a lot from what it might have been, but we can do some more research on that. And then Bullinger, who was in the last 2 centuries, of course. So you have Irenaeus in the first 2, here's the last 2. And he taught that this is exclusively Jewish. And then, of course, you can see pre-tribulation goes all the way into the apocalypse to chapter 4. And the rapture view is triggered prior to the 70th week of Daniel. Then Jesus returns, chapter 19. So here's this, but I'll show you how I made the chart, how we were taught. It was genius in systematic theology, the genius of Dr. John Owen. He has this survey outlines, and you can actually replicate a chart of what it might look like in 1560, because the Geneva Bible, English Bible, published in 1560 was the first English Bible that was published that included both chapters and verses included in the text. So here's his outline of Revelation. So when he went to the board, you could just literally take the outline, and that's your chart. So that's how simple and clear it is. It doesn't mean that it's not useful just because it's clear and concise. However, you probably won't find it very often discussed. What's the difference between pre-apocalypse and pre-tribulation? And to quantify it, if 4 through 19, let's say you are aware of pre-trib, and basically it eliminates chapters 4 through 19. So that's approximately 17 chapters of the apocalypse that are exclusively Jewish. And of course, I didn't mean to say that there weren't also Gentiles on the earth. It's God's dealing with his people. So that's 17 chapters. And of course, over here, Irenaeus and Bullinger both. So here's pre-trib. This is pre-trib. They are affirming that 17 chapters aren't about what God's doing with us. And then in pre-apocalypse, it's all 22 chapters. There we go. For a difference of, the difference would be for a difference of 5 chapters. So it'd be difficult to deny that in the first 2 centuries, the focus on this vision, this apocalypse, was Jewish-centered. And it'd be hard to deny that as late as this day and age, we still see a focus on God again dealing with, as that 70th week is still wanting, and that it is significantly, if not approximately, the same. So these are quite alike, and I just wanted you to know. And also, I have a book that will help in the future. I made a video about, does the rapture occur in phases or simultaneously? And I have this book that speaks of phases. First phase, then it talks about second phase. This is a book by ABA pastor, retired Roy Matlock. Roy Matlock. It's an excellent book. I'll see if I can find where this might be available. But he talks about, in it he says, a complete description of the evil beast of Revelation, the truth about the woman riding the scarlet-colored beast, what she represents, the Antichrist exposed in detail, where he will originate, a biblical exposition of the millennial kingdom of Jesus Christ, a description of the Battle of Armageddon, a revelation of the glories of heaven. So that's retired pastor Roy Matlock, and this is retired systematic theology professor Dr. John Owen. And so you can just take his book, and that's how you can make the outline. And you can just turn that and do it. So since I'm losing my voice, I'll get out of the way, let you see the chart. But this is actually just comparing and contrasting the assertions of early history and, let's say, within the first 2 centuries and then in the last 2 centuries. It appears that this exclusive Jewish view was held early in history and then later in history as well. And like I said, Brother Roy Matlock worked in churches of the American Baptist Association, independent churches that are associational with one another. So that's it. I'll see if I can find the book for Dr. John Owen and include that. And one thing too, I'm trying to review and understand replacement theology, especially when it's a charge or an accusation, because it appears that unless you're all these seem to have the Jewish God dealing with his people in the future, which doesn't appear that it is a denial of anything that God has wanting or pending to complete with them. And yet today, we know in the Lord's churches, Jew and Gentile are there visibly as one new man in Christ who've come out. And like what we teach in the church letters is put on Christ, and outwardly there, visibly, as we have to emphasize visible, the Lord's visible assemblies, which you'd think is redundant, but it's necessary. But that one new man that we are in Christ Jesus, and of course individuals, whether you're a Jew or Gentile, we're all children of Abraham by faith in Christ Jesus. And of course, so the call is to come out, sever your ties through baptism, come into the ecclesia, put on Christ, and we do that through the ecclesia baptizing the individual, of course, water baptism, and we confer that identity, and there we are. If you read church history, baptism, water baptism is quite a trigger for persecution. So this is it here. I'll just step out of the way, but you can certainly see why when I studied Irenaeus in the early 80s in university and then came into the church where my wife grew up, and people were talking about pre-trib, and I was saying, I'm not having anything to do with it. And then I was taught early in the 70s, rapture, never mentioned the word tribulation. Just any minute you could be gone and Jesus is going to come. And seldom did people differentiate, as we have people deliberately now almost ruin a good message because they can't seem to preach without stopping to explain or be careful not. It's silly, but no, to say Jesus might be here tonight and nothing will prevent the return of Christ and he could be here tomorrow and the rapture, go. So anyway, you have a blessed day. Enjoy this lesson, but I just want to show you the difference when we contrast pre-apocalypse with pre-tribulation. So have a blessed day. Enjoy this lesson.